You're listening to the award-winning podcast from Rutgers Law School, The Power of Attorney. I'm your host and Dean of the Law School, Joanna Bond. Today's episode is an annual fan favorite. I'm joined by Rutgers Law Student Bar Association presidents in Camden and Newark. We're going to have a great conversation about getting to law school and what the experience is like as a student and as a leader. I'm joined by Isabel Ballester and Mehrin Ali. Isabel Ballester is a 3L at Rutgers Camden. Isabel is a first-generation student and is a proud Philadelphia native and sports fan. After graduating from Davidson College, Isabel worked as the special assistant to the chief of staff at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. She progressed to the role of paralegal for the DA's Conviction Integrity and Special Investigations Unit, where she reviewed wrongful conviction claims. Later, Isabel worked as a program coordinator with the Youth Sentencing and Reentry Project, strategically supporting children charged as adults at all phases of incarceration. She is now a social justice scholar at Rutgers Law School, and we're very lucky to have her, volunteering on several pro bono projects. Mehrin Ali is a first-generation law student and 3L in Newark. She's a Long Island native and graduate of New York University. Mehrin was a 1L summer associate at McCarter and English, where she participated in a dual internship program with Becton, Dickinson and Company. During her 2L summer, she worked at the Office of the New Jersey Public Defender, where she made over 15 court appearances through the Office of Law Guardian, providing legal representation to children in child welfare cases. Next year, she'll be clerking for the Honorable Presiding Judge Hani Maula in the Appellate Division in Trenton. During her time at Rutgers, she founded and served as the president of the South Asian Law Students Association. She is also the administrative editor of the International Law and Human Rights Journal. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thanks, Dean Bond.
Thank you, Dean Bond.
It's such a pleasure to have worked with both of you in your capacity as student leaders. I feel extraordinarily lucky that we have you as part of our community. So one of the questions we always start out with is, what is your origin story? So let's start with you, Isabel, and then we'll move to Mehrin.
Yeah, so in college, so I actually started college pre-med. I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be the first doctor in my family. And then I took Bio 101 and I was like, actually, this is not it.
Right.
I don't like the sight of blood. I can't do it. I don't know what I was thinking. But the passion to assist others and to really be in a profession where I could support people and use my privilege as, a very educated person to help other people was really important to me. So my senior year of college, I decided I'm going to go to law school, but I was really burnt out. So I took some time off, and one of the most critical pieces of advice that I got between my senior year and now is before you go to law school, know what lawyers do, because it's vast, and also you might have this idea in your head of what it is and it doesn't actually match up to that. So it's a big investment. Make sure you know what you're getting into. So I did that. I went and I worked for the Philly District Attorney's Office for Larry Krasner for a couple years. Super formative work. Loved it. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, actually, law school is not for me. I'm tired. The world is ending. I'm going to just figure it out. And then I had a great mentor in that office in the Special Investigations Unit. And he was like, listen, you got to do it. You have the drive. You have the passion. You have the mindset. Please do this. I'll support you. I'll help you. And he did. And here we are. That was 2020. So 6 years ago. And I'm about to graduate. So shout out to big mentors, to people looking out for you. And yeah, I'm really excited to get to, join this profession.
That's a great story, Isabel. And truly, I mean, what a difference a good mentor can make, right? And
Yeah,
in
exactly.
terms of encouraging you at just the right moment, that's wonderful. Okay, Mehrin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Isabel, for sharing that inspiring story. So my name is Mehrin. Like Dean Bond had mentioned, I'm born and raised on Long Island, New York. I'm a proud daughter of Bangladeshi immigrants. My parents immigrated to New York in the 80s, where they raised their 4 kids. I'm the youngest of 4, so I was spoiled my whole life. But just a little bit about me. I have always wanted to be a zealous advocate, and I always knew law school was the ultimate goal for me. I did want to go straight through from undergrad to law school, though during my senior year of college, my father had liver cancer and it became really bad really fast. He actually ended up getting a liver and kidney transplant during my senior year. So there was a lot happening. And in the midst of all that, I wasn't able to kind of go straight through like I had planned. So I had taken a year off. I was his caretaker because when you survive cancer, when you have two transplants, you need a lot of support as much as possible. So I kind of took on that emotional and physical caretaking responsibilities. But then I was still able to, of course, go to law school and be at Rutgers here. A little fun fact about me: I love concerts. I love rap music. I love R&B and hip hop. I've seen Beyonce live 5 times, so she's definitely my
Wow.
favorite,
Iconic.
my favorite artist.
Iconic.
Yes, I want to
I'm so
keep seeing
jealous.
her.
Right.
But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's great. That's great. I hope your dad is better. Is he
Yes,
better and
yes, he's
healthy?
much
Good.
better.
I'm so glad. Okay, so my next question you both have already sort of answered, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and you can add to the answer. What made you go to law school and to come to Rutgers Law specifically?
Yeah, so similar to Mehrin, I am a daughter of, well, I'm actually a granddaughter of immigrants. My grandparents, my abuelos came here from the Dominican Republic. And my abuelita always wanted to be an attorney. And so, and she would have been a really good one. So I think it's such an honor to carry on her legacy in that way and to bring her with me with, you know, in every step that I get to take, I get to bring her with me knowing that she would have be doing the same thing. Rutgers specifically is two things. Dean Matt Sala. I remember I came to an information session and I was blown away by him, his candor, his transparency. He shared, you know, vulnerably some of his experiences about being in the application process and being in law school. And one of the questions that I always asked on tours when I was touring was, you know, how do your classes, or how do the professors here, how does the school grapple with the racist history of the law, and how does that show up in our legal classrooms and in the 1L curriculum? You know, are we talking about redlining? Are we talking about critical race theory? Just because that was a huge part of why I wanted to go to law school, and I also didn't want to be at an institution where we weren't going to discuss those things, because that's not the type of law that I wanted to learn. So Dean Sala's answer was so on point and so meaningful to me that he answered it so honestly and openly. And that was it. I was like, if I don't care where else I get in, I'm going to go to Rutgers. It's going to happen. And thankfully, you know, I still have the voicemail from Matt today. My acceptance. I'll forever remember the parking lot I was sitting in crying, listening to that voicemail. And I will say, the last thing I'll say about this is that if I were to do the law school process over again, which thank God I don't have to ever do that. But if I had to, for some reason, I would still pick Rutgers. Going back, I really feel very, very lucky that when people ask me, you know, or when, you know, there's like the camaraderie or commisery about, ugh, law school, it was so horrible. Like, yes, there are moments, but to feel like, wow, no, I actually had a really great law school experience. And that is because Rutgers is so, like, it is what it is. Like, I feel really, really lucky that that's part of my story.
That's fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that. And not at all surprised that Dean Sala played a role in both recruiting you and retaining you through the years. So no, he's a gem. We're very lucky to have him too. Okay, Mehrin.
Yeah, well, so funny, Isabel. I feel like we all have a voicemail from Dean Sala.
Yes.
Yes.
Like,
It's that human touch. You know, he
Exactly.
reaches out to every accepted student. It's extraordinary. I don't think most admissions deans do that.
oh,
So
not at all.
very,
Yeah.
very lucky.
Yeah, but just to go off of that, I think kind of a lot of similar points. Knowing that my parents had taken the journey to immigrate from Bangladesh to New York, you know, that's no small feat. And one of their main kind of reasons for that was to give us a better life, specifically education wise. And that's something that is really a value and foundation for my family. Both, you know, me and my siblings are very well educated. Some of my siblings are physicians and nurses and PhD candidates. So I did want to get, in higher education. And I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an advocate. I grew up watching shows like, Law and Order. And I always saw myself just like on my feet in a courtroom. And that's always just been the goal for me. And I really don't take the privilege of having such a higher education, that level of education, for granted at all. And as far as just specifically Rutgers, of course, Dean Saul is amazing. But in addition to that, growing up on Long Island, I stuck out a lot. I was one of the only POCs in the room constantly. And then additionally, I went to a PWI, which that was also the same experience for me. I wanted my last experience. This is going to be my last experience being a student, my last time to at least be in a classroom where there's people that look like me, that I could look around and see people that had similar walks of life with me. They don't have to be specifically South Asian, of course, but just similarly like diverse-minded individuals. And that's exactly what Rutgers is. And that's how kind of it was marketed to me. And when I came to Rutgers, that's exactly what I found. So I'm so glad I made the best decision. In addition, just knowing the history of Professor Kanoy, the People's Electric Law School, like all this incredible rich history that Rutgers Law School has really added to that experience and added to me choosing Rutgers. So really just, I value diversity so much, and I love how much Rutgers values diversity.
That is fantastic. And that's one area where I'm very proud to say I think we don't disappoint. We have this incredibly rich, diverse student body and truly extraordinary leaders like both of you. And I couldn't ask for a better student body. It's just really an extraordinary collection of people. So I'm glad to hear that both of you have had a good experience, that it lived up to expectations, and that you would do it all over again. Not that you need to.
Exactly. So I'm going to ask a question, and this is for both of you. And feel free to elaborate on this, Dean Bond. I know that maybe 1L year is not 2 years ago for you as it was for us.
That's a very polite way of putting that.
I'm not calling you old. I didn't mean to say that. No, but what surprised you about 1L year? And you can like in any capacity, but academically, socially, spiritually, what maybe some expectations that you had coming into 1L year that surprised you, and that can be good or bad.
Yeah, it's a great question. One thing that I think surprised me in 1L year specifically was legal writing. And I considered myself a very good writer. I sort of breezed through college, didn't have to work that hard, developed what I thought was really good writing skills. And then I got into 1L legal writing. And as you both know, it's a totally different animal, right? So I had to accept that I had a lot to learn, and that was surprising. But I think that I was open to that new way of thinking about the law and new way of approaching writing. And so I adapted pretty quickly, but that is one thing that definitely surprised me in my 1L year.
Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't think of that, but absolutely. Yeah, especially for those of us who have like a creative writing background, or who like to, we're taught to embellish, we're taught to use a lot of adjectives, we're taught to really set the scene. It's like the red ink on our first memos about this is not necessary, mix that, enough of this, stop yapping, all of that.
Right. Focus on IRAC, right?
Yes, exactly. How about you, Mehrin?
Yeah, just going off of that, of course, legal writing was definitely an adjustment for everybody. I do remember vividly during orientation, what was expressed to us by our dean of students and other faculty members was that your law school, your legal network and legal career starts today. And that's something I understood, but then I didn't realize how intimate and close-knit our law school was. Like my undergrad institution, NYU, was gigantic. You could take a class and you would never see those people again, the rest of the 4 years. Whereas in Rutgers, you take a class and there's only 850 students at the Newark campus. So it's very small. We all get to know each other very well, which I love. And I think it's almost kind of like a high school vibe, which is so interesting. And it's so different from my undergraduate experience. But I think overall, just our legal career really did start the first day of 1L, because New Jersey is a small legal network and we're all going into that. Isabel and I were graduating and we're just joining that network. And I love that though.
Yeah.
All right, looking back, what would you tell your first year self about surviving and thriving in law school? Isabel, you want to go first?
Oh man, I actually might kick it to Dean Bond first. I don't know.
Sure,
There's so many things. Yeah,
I
go ahead.
know. I'll take a stab at it. I think I would tell my 1L self, you got this. I, like a lot of people, I had imposter syndrome. I did not think that I belonged in law school. I didn't come from a family of lawyers. I struggled with this sort of self-conception of myself as a lawyer. And it was really a clinical experience that I had. So this was not 1L year, but it was a meaningful experience in clinic where I was representing a victim of domestic violence, and I was in a criminal trial with a prosecutor, and I prepared all the elements of the case, and the prosecutor at some point leaned over and said, "Do you think I covered it?" And I said, "No, actually, I think you need to talk about this some more." And it turned out that was the thing that the judge seized on, and we lost the case. But for me, it was sort of this moment where I thought, okay, maybe I am made for this. Maybe I can do this. And so it was that it felt like I was just getting the legitimation that I needed. And so I thought it was an important turning point for me. And I sort of began to think, okay, I belong here. And those experiences, those moments are really important.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's also why, internships and your summer programs are so important because you have those opportunities to get your sea legs a little bit.
Right.
I think I can absolutely relate to that. I'm also first generation, which you already stated, Dean Bond. Yeah, I'm a minority. I'm a super minority in terms of my race, my gender, my sexual orientation, all the things. So, like, there, it's just a constant struggle about like showing up as yourself and showing up in a space, especially in a profession that is. I just remember Professor Hawkins explaining this, like the legal profession is so behind with diversity because they just find these loopholes. And so just knowing that that's an uphill battle, but knowing that the fight is so worth it because it's not just about that.
Mm-hmm.
And also find your people. Like once you find your people and you realize like you carry each other. And that is one of the beautiful things about forging friendships in grad school is just you're all in this struggle together. And so like don't be afraid to lean on those people. You're not alone. And fake it till you make it a little bit, but also
Absolutely.
yeah, but also like it has to be an intrinsic, like you have to figure out how to intrinsically validate yourself because I think to your point, Teen Bond, like yes, the extrinsic validation is key. And then once you have those moments, like use them to validate yourself internally. Use them as like, no, you don't have to do anything to prove your worth because you're already here. You made it. You're in the
Yeah.
door. The
Yeah.
Dean Salas of the world saw you. The, admissions teams of the world saw you and saw how hard you worked to get here. And then the last thing I'll say and I've said this on panels, like for orientation is like maybe notify your non-law school people that like this is a collaborative investment.
Right.
That I think the learning curve of like, oh snap, my relationships outside of law school are changing because I
Yeah.
have a lot less time and a lot less capacity to contribute to these. And so just like maybe put people on notice like, hey, if I don't answer, it's not personal. I'm just not available.
Yeah.
So
That's a
but also
really
like
good point.
yeah, and help them like make sure like let them know I need you to root for me right now. Like
Yeah.
this is about me and your confidence in me. I'm going to rely on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to your point, Isabel, about the importance of finding your people, I mean, the flip side of that too is that the people you find, you'll bond with throughout law school, and
Absolutely.
you
Exactly.
all haven't had this experience yet, but I'm many years out of law school, and I still get together with that 5 or
I love
6
that.
people.
Oh, I
And
love
not
that.
every year, but I would say every 4 or 5 years we get together. We all fly to one place, and it's like we never
So
left
cute.
law school. It's
Oh.
brilliant. Those friendships are real, and they're forged through a lot of shared, in some cases shared misery, when finals roll around, but also some really wonderful shared experiences and celebrations of each other's triumphs. So yeah,
Exactly.
those are really, really
Yeah.
valuable bonds.
Okay, what's the biggest myth about law school that should be cleared up? And I actually have one for this. I was really ruminating about this, so I'll share first and you guys can go after me if it inspires you.
Great.
I think this actually might be true at other law schools, but I remember people giving me the heads up, like, law school's really competitive and everybody's cutthroat and out for themselves, and people rip pages out of textbooks in the library and, will give you wrong information, that it's every person for themselves. And like I said, that might be true at other law schools, but at Rutgers and in Camden, I feel like that has never been my experience. Like, we are all just really looking out for each other and wanting to see others succeed. And even though it's graded on a curve and it's complicated in so many ways, like, my colleague's success or my friend's success is still my success. And that is so, like, that to me, I think, is why I've had a positive law school experience, because we really worked hard to change that narrative about, like, why we're here and what's really the point. The point is we're all struggling. Law school sucks for everybody, so let's just do this together. But yeah, how about you both? What are some myths?
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Me
That's
too.
exactly what I was going to say.
That's what I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Too.
So
I kid you not. That was my answer.
And I think that's really a testament to the leadership of the law school and the dean's office of not fostering that type of culture, where I know that is the case in other law schools, that it is cutthroat, it is competitive, but I'm just so grateful that that's not how it is at Rutgers on both campuses, it seems like. I will say that, especially given that this is the last time I'm ever going to school, this is the last time I'm ever going to spend this amount of time with my law school friends. Of course, like Dean Bond mentioned, like, now it'll be 4 or 5 years maybe the next time I see them. So, and of course, I know we're all gonna kind of move on with our lives. So I'm really just trying to be in the moment, because I know time flies, and like just be grateful and enjoy it as much as possible, because this last semester, Isabel, is flying. I'm not sure about you.
Flying.
I've truly met. Dean Zola did a great job creating his tracks, because my track is still so close 3 years later. They're my best friends. I've gone to their weddings, their baby showers, like so many life events I've been able to be part of because we were able to meet, whether it was orientation or a track or other classes. So I'm just so grateful for that.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad that you both have had that experience. That's great. And yes, Isabel, that was exactly what I was going to say too. So we're all on the same page.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. So what was everyone's favorite and least favorite classes in law school? I'll start us off because Isabel already name dropped Professor Hawkins. So my favorite course by far was the South African Constitutional Law course.
I'm in that this semester.
Oh,
great.
That's awesome.
That's
Sorry
great.
to cut you off,
Awesome.
but yes, that's awesome.
No worries. So I took it last spring, so 2L spring with Professor Hawkins. We did a 12-day trip to South Africa during spring break. We visited Johannesburg, Cape Town. We went on a safari. It was truly life-changing. I don't think if it were not for that course, I would ever go to South Africa. So I'm so grateful I took that opportunity, especially during my undergrad experience was kind of split up because of COVID. So I couldn't get that study abroad opportunity that I probably would have taken if COVID didn't happen. So I'm just so grateful. And then just overall, besides even the trip, Professor Hawkins is a fantastic lecturer. I think she's the best professor I've ever had. And her ability to conduct a comparative analysis with the U.S. Constitution, with South African Constitution, while also kind of bringing in her employment law background and, her little niches herself throughout the course was so pleasant. It was such a great experience.
That's wonderful. And Isabel, I'm so glad that you're in that class this semester. That's fantastic. I actually had the privilege of going on the trip to South Africa 2 years ago. So
awesome.
I was a year before you, Mehrin.
Awesome.
And it was amazing. I've done a lot of work on women's rights in Tanzania and Uganda, and to some extent working with partners in South Africa. But this trip was special. To be able to go with students was really fun and
that's great.
And gratifying to me, because I'm out of the classroom for the most part these days. And so, to have that kind of quality time with students was really lovely. And the academic component of that class was fascinating to me too. I've studied the South African Constitution, and so to watch students delve into their own comparative analysis of the South African Constitution and the U.S. Constitution is great. And of course, there's some amazing progressive parts of the South African Constitution. So, looking at those and then comparing them to our own Constitution and constitutional law, which is somewhat in flux right now, is fascinating
Yeah,
academic
exactly.
exercise. So I'm glad you both had that experience. Favorite and least favorite classes?
Great. Okay, so I took criminal procedure investigations with Professor Wade here in Camden. And I have a criminal background. I've worked on both sides of the aisle with criminal law in Philadelphia. And I, have a big passion for defense work and for, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment rights, especially with young people. So I was super excited to take this class. By the time I took this class in my 2L spring, though, I was like, I never want to step foot in a criminal courtroom ever. This is too stressful. But I love the professor so much. And it's also on the bar. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take it. I kid you not, I was reevaluating my entire life. Like, maybe I should go into criminal law. Maybe I should do this. The way she taught it was so just like she's so upfront with the implications of the Fourth and Fifth Amendment in our criminal legal system and the abuse of that and how the Supreme Court has interpreted, the Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Fourth Amendment, like I said, and just how much that trickles down into what we see every day and how the criminal legal system disproportionately affects minority communities. And so the fact that she was naming it every class, right? It wasn't just like we're going to spend 5 minutes on our first class, like, hey, by the way, racism exists, and then keep going and talk about these cases like without discussing race. She really was just so, for like upfront, like I said about it. And she really did such a good job of preparing us as future attorneys to ask the questions, right? She wasn't biased. She wasn't saying, she wasn't probably speaking her own personal opinion about what she thinks, but just inviting us to really think about, okay, what are the consequences to these interpretations and how can we show up, whether as prosecutors or as defense attorneys, and ask these critical questions, and how do we, frame what has been given us to really just hone in on what we're here to learn, which is what is the right, and protecting those rights for people. So yeah, I'm like, maybe I'll be a public defender actually in the end because of Professor Wade and criminal procedure. I
Wow.
loved that class.
I love that you had those light bulb moments in that class, and it sort
Yeah.
of opened your world in ways that you probably didn't expect. So that's
It also,
great.
I think, really quickly, it went back to why I picked Rutgers, I think, just to tie this together. To me, it was such a moment of like, this is why I'm here. This is what I came to law school to learn. And so for her to just on her own initiative be like, for not a doctrinal class, but a quasi doctrinal class, be upfront. I was like, this is it. I'm supposed
That's
to be here. But
awesome.
yes, go ahead.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So when I was applying to law schools, this was the dark ages, but I only applied to law schools that had someone who was teaching feminist legal theory because I knew I wanted to do women's
yeah.
rights work. And so back in the dark ages, that was not every law school. I think if I were applying nowadays, almost every law school would have somebody who's teaching in that area. And so some of my favorite classes were in women's rights and feminist legal theory. But I will say my other favorite classes were taught by a professor named John Powell, who ran an institute called the Institute for Race and Poverty. And I had the opportunity, I basically became a groupie of his institute. So every institute event, I was there. I was, I was helping out at just volunteering and trying to get as much exposure as I possibly could. But, and he was a wonderful mentor and is now teaching out at Berkeley. But the lessons that I learned in his class about race, the construction of race in our society was just pretty life-changing. I don't know how else to describe it. We did a project in one of his classes on housing segregation and its impact on school funding. And nowadays, you'd have all kinds of computer tools to create the maps that we created by hand. I mean, it's just insane. But it was an incredible learning experience. And he's one of those people that, as I look back on my law school experience, he made such an impression on me, and really became a mentor and a friend later. But really an extraordinary professor. So that had to be up there with my favorite classes. My least favorite class And this is, I have to apologize to all of my colleagues in corporate law, Arthur Levy being one of them. Arthur's a friend of mine, but I did not love, I took corporations, what we call at Rutgers biz orgs, but same class, was not my favorite.
That's fair. Yeah.
Do you have you ever gotten to tell Professor Powell how much of an impact he had on you?
Yes, I have,
good.
fortunately. Yes. I mean, as soon as I entered into academia, I was in closer touch with him after law school and in those early years when I was in academia, but I was able to bring him back
Great.
when I was at Georgetown. I invited him back to come lecture. And so yes, we've
That's
had
awesome.
that kind of professional relationship too, which is
Good.
really gratifying and
Yeah.
not something I would have expected as a law student. I just wanted to learn as much as I possibly could, but
Yeah,
it
exactly.
sort of blossomed into this other relationship, which has been great.
I love that.
It's awesome.
Okay, now it's back to me. So again, you all have sort of alluded to this, but I'm going to put a fine point on it. Explain to our audience what community looks like here at the law school on a day-to-day basis.
That's a great question. I mean, I could try to jump in. I think
Yeah,
community.
it's the little things. Go ahead.
Exactly. It's the 10:45 to 11 a.m. block where everyone's in the hallway going to the next class, and you get to catch up with your colleagues and fellow students that are in other classes, but you didn't get to see each other that day, and you get to really quickly before class starts talk to each other. I think it's also where critical departments in the law school, whether that's CCD or MSP, are holding important programs, whether that's socially or networking, professional development. But it's also when student organizations like SBA and other important law societies are also hosting events simultaneously at the same time, and having an opportunity for us to really think critically and attend these other events, these various events, socially, culturally, networking wise. And I love also when professors come to our events or faculty members support each other, when deans support each other. I know Dean Bond makes an incredible effort to always attend our major galas, and she's actually speaking at an event tonight, Behind the Bench. So I just love that we have a community where we just support one another, whether that's just departmentally or student organization wise or just law school wide.
That's great. And I'm so excited about Behind the Bench tonight. Looking forward to it.
I don't know that I would have said anything different. I think it's both the informal ways, like you said, in Camden we call it the bridge. The rush between classes. I think it's this morning I had a very exciting and kind of like on its face like kind of hard but like really important conversation with some administrative people here with one of my really good friends. And we the fact that we were given a platform because there's like a level of trust that we were able to have these really hard and important conversations across both, not like vertically, right? So between administrators and students was really really special. And I think just getting to flex that muscle a little bit, because we have this community, we have this understanding of what we're here to do and how to foster students and help build their skill sets, I think is another really big part of that.
Absolutely. Wow, you both totally nailed it in terms of describing our community. That is absolutely true.
Would you add anything to that?
Um, I would not add anything except to say that I look forward to coming into this building. I really do. I look forward to coming to the building to, for the random encounters with students or faculty, and I have the privilege of having two communities because I get to know people on the Camden campus as well as the Newark campus, and I can say without hesitation that they're both really special communities of people. So I feel very privileged, for a lot of the same reasons that you all talked about.
I love
Awesome.
that. Okay, so it's back to me. What areas of the law excite you?
That's a hard question to answer because, well, for me at least, Mehrin, you may have a better answer than me, but the areas of the law that excite me are the ones that are maybe generate the most consequences. So like excite isn't necessarily the right word. I am on the law review in Camden, or I guess it's one law review. I'm on the law review, and I wrote a note last year on how the pedagogy of criminal law impacts young people, and how it informs us as students, which therefore informs how young people are treated in the criminal legal system. And I now I feel differently. But at the time when I was doing the research, I was like, I'm going to get my PhD in this. I was so excited and so just like enthralled in this idea of criminal law as a moral philosophy class, thinking about how, this idea of the law student to prosecutor pipeline, how young people are treated, why we incarcerate young people, and just how much privilege and power we have as law students and as legal professionals, as people who speak the language of the law, how we use that. Like, that is so fascinating to me, and getting the opportunity to be inspired by other people doing the work that I find so important, and also maybe the people that I would have more criticism for, right? Learning like, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like that. Those moments really help me understand, like, what is this all about? What are we doing here? Especially I think right now, when being a law student is especially difficult, given that how we understand the rule of law is challenged every day. And so, yeah, I think for me, it's always been about young people. It's always been about, how young people are treated within the criminal legal system specifically, but then having the opportunity to really dive into something on my own, to come up with this thesis and be supported in that, and write a note, which, quick plug, it will be published, which is really exciting.
Yay! That's fantastic.
Thank you. It's just like, it is very, very rewarding. And in another life, if I got my PhD, that's what I would do.
That's great. That's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely feel so excited by every type of law that I encounter. And I think that really speaks to Rutgers faculty members, because they are so excited to teach, especially their niche area. For example, right now I'm taking wrongful convictions taught by Professor Cohn, and that is like her bread and butter. So especially like when you're being taught by someone like that, is what she spent her entire career doing. She's proposed legislations in Jersey. Like, she's done fantastic work. So it's like, how could I not be excited by this, even if I know criminal law specifically isn't what I'm probably going to go into? But I am just so excited about everything. I'm so excited about everything. Last semester, I was in the housing and justice clinic. I love that. And that's something that, again, I don't think I'm necessarily going to go into, but housing law was so interesting, especially because it's being taught by housing attorneys. So, but I do think specifically for me, what I probably will go into was, this past summer, I was at the public defender's office, specifically in the law guardian office, which is child welfare cases. And a law guardian is a state-appointed advocate for children involved in these proceedings. And I just think I'm really fascinated by that. I really enjoyed my experience and just overall family law in general. So anything client-facing, though, I love that.
That's wonderful. Well, I sort of fall into the camp of what areas of the law excite me, and the answer is all of them. And I'll tell you why. I mean, I did, as you know, I came into law school with very specific interests, very public interest oriented all through law school. But I had an interesting experience as a federal judicial clerk after law school. And I have to say, I went in with a bad attitude. I thought, I'm this hardcore public interest person. I care about social justice, and I'm not going to be interested in the patent case that comes along. Yeah. And what I found out was that I'm actually really interested in those cases. Yes. We had fascinating cases come before the judge, and they were, one of my favorite cases was actually a patent case. But the point is, it totally blew my mind how fascinating I thought all these cases from all these different areas of law were. And I went in thinking, I'm not going to be interested. This is going to be boring. I know it's really important to do it, but I'm not going to love it. And I loved it. So it was surprising to me, but I think that demonstrates, to me at least, that I can find something interesting about almost any legal question.
I'm interning across the street in Camden. I guess I should be more specific. I'm interning at the district, in the district of New Jersey this semester with the judge. And it's funny, I have a patent case that I'm working on, and I was like, all right, like, trying to keep a good attitude. This patent law case is in front of me. Okay, I got this. I just took IP with Professor Carrier. I have a good foundation. And then I get into it, and I'm like, wait, this is so interesting. And I'm like, I have all these tabs open and I'm like asking the clerk, I'm like, can I have like one more day to research? Because I actually have all these questions, you know?
Right.
So yes, I can absolutely relate to that.
That's great.
I love
That's
that.
great.
Awesome. So
Yes, go ahead. I don't think it's my turn.
yeah, awesome. So what strategies have helped you maintain a balance in law school? I could briefly answer this. I think I really love extracurriculars. I think maybe you could tell by being president of SBA, I really just like kind of student leadership positions. And I think because we're just taking a rigorous course load, whether that's bar courses or clinic or both at the same time, it's kind of nice to be able to take a break, but also at the same time give back to the student body that is, that I'm going to classes with. So through my work in SBA, that's been very rewarding. Additionally, I always try to take time off on the weekends. Like I mentioned before, I love going to concerts. I always like try to have one concert lined up for every few months because it just really makes me happy. And I like doing things in the area as well. Like in Newark, there's a art shop called Glass Roots. I just did a glass blowing workshop there, which was really cool. We made some paperweights. So yeah, I think there's so many cool like small owned businesses in the area that I just want to support and also, kind of get my creativity flowing through there.
That's wonderful.
I think this question implies that I have balance.
Yes, right.
I'm still struggling. My answer is constantly developing. So I honestly was not until 2L year that I think I really figured this out. 1L year, we're not gonna go there. My lack of balance. I learned the hard way what lack of balance looks like. But 2L year, I actually started taking a dance class. So my partner owns a dance studio, and I've always wanted to be a ballerina. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to take ballet. And so every Saturday,
I love that.
every Saturday I took ballet, and I was surrounded by people who did not care about the law, right? And then they were supportive of me, and they're like, law school, amazing. But they weren't like, we weren't talking about the law. We weren't talking about anything. We were just, it was joyous, surrounded by, a bunch of just like people who looked like me, dancing. And it was also, a hat tip to my inner child, getting to, move my body and finally do this thing that I've always wanted to do. So I think, Mehrin, to your point, like the extracurriculars are key. And also, I think when they get really, really tough, I think one of the biggest things that I always go back to is talking to people outside of the law school and just reminding yourself, who you are outside of being a law student, who you are outside of being an attorney. And whatever you need to do to remind yourself of that, whether it's, movement or reading or, glass blowing. That's so cool.
Yeah, I love that.
That is really what keeps me grounded.
That's excellent. Excellent. Those are great strategies. I have one note to add to the mix, and it really falls into the bucket of things not to do to try and achieve balance in your life. But when I was a 1L, this was towards the end of my 1L year, I decided to get a puppy. I thought, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
And it actually ended up being fantastic. This dog was truly beloved by me for 10 years, for that period of time, sort of all through the rest of law school into my early career. And she kept me grounded in a way that I would not have thought possible. But it did mean that I was rushing home between classes, to walk the dog and that kind of thing. So you've got to know what you're getting into when you do it. But I have no regrets. It was wonderful, actually.
I love that. That's what kind of dog was it?
She was a pound puppy. And I think she was a mix between a lab and a chow.
Oh,
she was amazing. Best dog ever. To this day, I've had several other dogs. They're great. They are not like my law school dog.
Yeah.
He was incredible. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so this question is for you, Dean Bond. And it's a tough one because you have to pick one. What is the most rewarding aspect of your role as dean?
That's impossible to pick one. I mean, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to answer creatively and roll several things into one.
Like a true attorney. Love that.
Yes, exactly. Right. It's both and.
Yes.
No, I think what I find most rewarding about this job is really the students and the alums. And I love talking to our students. I love finding out what they're doing, both in class and outside of class. Similarly, when I get out into the alumni community, I am amazed. We
Yeah.
have extraordinary alums out in the world doing incredible
Yeah.
work, whether they're judges now or work in the private sector and have sort of risen through the ranks at their law firms and they're in leadership now, or they're in government and public interest. No matter what they're doing across the board, we have alums who are just remarkable. And they have this connection to Rutgers Law School, which I really value. It means that they want to engage with me as the dean. They want to reinvest in the law school. Most importantly, they care about you guys. They want to give back to the students who are current students. And so, they do that through a variety of means. Sometimes it's time, sometimes it's service on panels, sometimes it's financial support. But the loyalty to the institution is really remarkable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I love connecting with our alums and our students. So I've got to say that's the most rewarding part of my job, and I spend a lot of time on it. So it's
Yeah.
really quite gratifying.
I can't wait to meet an alum. I mean, maybe that's my 3L senioritis talking, but
Yeah.
but I mean that not like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to graduate, because it's very bittersweet. But no, I can't wait to join that network. I can't wait to
Yeah.
give back to the school. I can't wait to continue to build on the legacy and the foundation that so many people before me have built. I know,
Exactly.
Mehrin, I'm sure I can speak for you here to say, like, we both are so positively impacted. Like, we feel that as students, that
Yeah.
alum support, and so getting to give that back, I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's really a wonderful community of alums. So
Yeah.
they will welcome you with open arms.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Great.
All right, so I'm up next. What does everyone think the strengths of Rutgers Law are that most people don't know about? And I think even, Dean Bond, with your last response of the alumni network, I think that's something that people don't immediately think about, but that is definitely a key strength of ours. I think we have incredible professors, they have incredible scholarship, incredible people, incredible community and diversity. But I do think something that we don't highlight enough, and that's not something that we would immediately think to, is that we have amazing staff members here. These staff members,
Absolutely.
if they weren't here, this law school would not be running. So
It
I'm
would
just
not
so
function.
grateful. Yes, exactly. So I'm just so grateful for them and like just administrators in general, because I really value having that kind of those personal relationships, whether it's like the program administrator in the dean's office or the woman running the CLE program at Rutgers. Like, they're all fantastic and mean so much to me, and that's the type of relationship I always yearn for. And kind of what Isabel was saying earlier, of you don't always want to talk about law school with your peers, but that's typically what you talk about with your fellow students. But having those staff members and administrators being able to be there for you, but not always talking about law, just talking about our lives, is really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to agree with that 100%. The staff on both campuses are really amazing, and their dedication to students and student success is something that I feel on a daily basis. I hope it's palpable to our students. It's certainly heartfelt, and they really are the lifeblood of the institution. Without them, we would not function, as you said, Mehrin. They're really what keeps the doors open and the lights on. One thing I wanted to add is that we are known as an intellectual powerhouse at Rutgers Law School, but that was sort of solidified recently because Hein Online came out with a survey of the scholarship among law schools, scholarly contributions among law schools, and Rutgers ranked number 22, which is really,
That's awesome.
really
It's amazing.
extraordinary. Yes, it is. It's incredible, and it reflects the faculty and the faculty's commitment to producing scholarship. And I don't know if you all know this, but I probably shouldn't say this, Isabel, now that your note's going to be published, but sometime I read that the average law review article has a readership of 7 people. And so, every time I published a law review article, I thought, okay, well, there's my mom and my dad. That's 2 of
Yes,
them.
exactly.
I'll be a reader.
Okay, right. Fair enough. But my point about Rutgers faculty is that they're not producing scholarship just to sit on a shelf somewhere. So
Yeah.
much of the scholarship that's produced at this institution is publicly engaged scholarship. It's for the purpose of changing a law where there's an injustice, or for the purpose of making better privacy law. Whatever the case may be, it's really intentional, engaged scholarship, and I'm very proud of that. I'm not sure everybody knows that about Rutgers.
That reminds me, this summer, I one of the cases that I worked on I did some research on the universal injunction, and how we were trying to figure something out. But Professor Cruz here in Camden just came out with an article, I think last semester at some point, that had really addressed the question we were asking for our client. And I was like, oh, let me just send this to the attorney I was working with. Like, hey, yeah, my professor wrote this, like it was just
great.
such a moment, to plug Rutgers and to be like, yes, I'm so proud. Look how I go to school and I learn from all these smart people. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. It's a great illustration of the point. Thanks, Isabel.
Yes. Okay. What is the I don't know if we can get political here, but what are the biggest challenges facing law schools in 2026?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many headwinds right now. And I think, they really run the gamut. There's sort of the financial pressures on law schools right now. Yeah. The idea that we need to adapt to a changing government and political structure and democracy, and that we're turning students out into the world to act as lawyers in a changing landscape where constitutional law, for example, is changing weekly almost. And so, making sure that we are actually giving students the tools that they need to be strong advocates and proponents of democracy is really important. And it's important to our mission. But there are also other challenges that are less political, but real. And those are, the challenges brought by AI and the opportunities brought by AI too. I think it's one of those things where we need to prepare our students to operate and practice law in a world that is dominated by AI, but we also need them to understand the ethical challenges involved and the limitations of AI. So, those kinds of the need to stay current in the curriculum that we're delivering to students in a rapidly changing landscape is I would say one of the challenges. But there really are so many. The other one that I think is top of mind is the threats to academic freedom and freedom of speech, and that has been front and center in a lot of ways at a lot of schools and universities.
Absolutely.
And so that is one that I feel like we tackle in some form or another almost every week. So it's very much front and center.
Yeah.
What about you two? What would you add to that?
Yeah, just going off of that, Dean Bond, I totally agree. And especially from a student perspective, it's been difficult for me to be engaged in the classroom academically. I'm in criminal procedure right now. I'm taking these very important courses for the bar exam and perform well when, like Dean Bond had mentioned, we're grappling with what's going on in the world. For me, I'll speak for me at least, I'm seeing the rule of law being completely disregarded on a national level. So it's kind of hard for me to feel kind of excited about entering this career of being a lawyer and feeling motivated as well. And it kind of feels like the world is on fire at times, and it's been discouraging at times, but I remind myself by looking at our community, kind of looking around the classroom and the student body as a whole, of how incredible we are, how brilliant we are. And that really is kind of what takes me out of that hole sometimes when I'm feeling a bit down about it. But I'm definitely hopeful that we're going to be able to move past this moment. And Isabel and I, we're going to join this alumni network in a few months, and we're going to be able to give back to the future law students at Rutgers as well.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think for me, the first thing that came to mind was Grad Plus loans. I think there's already a divide, I would say, or there's the legal profession is already elitist, right? It's already one that is rewards people with money. And so I think the fact that the grad plus loans are no longer available for people, that's the only way I could afford a law school education is grad plus loans. And so I think about, I love being a first generation law student. I have a lot of pride in that. And Rutgers, so many of us are first generation law students, and that's incredible. And so I just worry about that. I worry about who now we allow to learn the law if we can't afford to learn the law. And it's people who can't afford to learn the law that are sometimes the best people to learn the law. Exactly. So that I think about as a huge threat. I also think about the recruiting timeline. This is not that large and it doesn't impact everybody, but the big law recruiting timeline and how that's trickling outside of big law, I think is really putting a lot of stress on students in a way that it's gotten worse even in the last 2 years. I mean, there's just a lot going on with that. So I think I would really love to see the ABA come out with something. I would really love to see, and I think there's a lot of antitrust issues with that. It's really complicated, but I do think something has to be done about the way that students are being recruited and students' talents are being considered. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I totally agree. I hope there'll be a course correction soon.
Yes, I hope so. The
it's
bubble
much
is
needed. Yeah,
right.
Well, we have to wrap up, and I feel like I could talk to both of you all day long.
Yes,
so I feel like we're just getting started, but we do need to wrap up. And I just want to thank you both so much for taking the time to join me today on the podcast. Really incredible guests and such remarkable examples of student leadership. I'm so proud to have you as part of our communities and to have you as leaders in our community. We are so lucky to have you now as students, and we will be lucky in the future to have you as alums. So I hope you'll stay in touch with us when you cross over that commencement bridge. But anyway, thank you both so much.
Thanks, Dean Bond.
Thank you, Dean Bond.
Good to see you.
Yes, nice to see you, Isabel.
The Power of Attorney is a production of Rutgers Law School. With 2 locations just minutes from New York City and Philadelphia, Rutgers Law offers the prestige and reputation of a large, nationally known university with a personal, small campus experience. Learn more by visiting us at law.rutgers.edu.